Coined it. Eagles this season, including the playoffs. Best defense points, best defense in total yards, best defense in yards per play, and second in passing yards and opponent passer rating. Fifth champ since the merger to lead the NFL in all three of the top categories. Is anyone shocked by how dominant Philly was?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I certainly thought they had a good chance to win the game. I thought there was virtually no chance of a blowout. I mean, Nick may know it off the top of his head. They don't get blown out. When's the last time?
Mahomes been blown out 5 times. Forget blown out. Mahomes has been – the Chiefs have been beaten by more than 8 points 5 times in Mahomes' entire career.
So
and twice in the last 3 years.
That's where it's hard for me to imagine. But here's what I'll say. All right, here's the thing. What shocked me the most was Philly's dominance, the defensive line versus the Chiefs' offensive line. We know they had 6 sacks with just rushing 4 and no blitzes. Mm-hmm. They only have 41 sacks this year as a team. That's 15th in the league. Remember last year, this is what I thought would happen because Baltimore was the physical team last year. Remember I famously talked about they want to fight. They're not the breakdance. Like they were so physical last year. They had 60 sacks last year. They played Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, and Kansas City was, I thought, more physical and tougher. And so I was stunned that Philadelphia just manhandled their front line so badly. So to me, that obviously I was surprised Mahomes didn't play well, but what happened up front was the most shocking thing to me in that game.
Greg, were you shocked?
Look, I was shocked. I'm not going to sit here and act like I wasn't shocked. But once they start putting them gloves on and start throwing them punches, it was like one after the other. I mean, they kept coming, Nick. They kept coming. And at some point,
I get it. Greg's a pro athlete, so I trust his facial awareness.
At some point, I know the Chiefs were like, okay, is it gonna slow down? No, it's still coming. It's still coming. Like when their defense took the field, and this is what was so impressive. They literally looked like, I'm trying to be the first one to Patrick Mahomes. You gonna beat me? You gonna beat me? You better hurry up because I'm coming. It was nothing that the Chiefs could do. And so what was probably more shocking was that it was nothing that they could do. They didn't even have to come with an uppercut. They didn't have to dodge. They didn't have to duck anything. It was just 1, 2, 3, 4. We gonna come after y'all, and let's see what y'all do. And you can't handle it.
It was the first non-divisional game all year that I felt like the other team wasn't at a huge psychological disadvantage.
100%.
So, like, you always bring up that the Chiefs squeaked past the Raiders, the Broncos, the Chargers, those 3 games all by 2 points. I've always dismissed it, and I will continue to dismiss it because they're also the only team to go undefeated in the division. Most teams don't squeak past them. They just lose some of them. Divisional teams play you too much to be, like, intimidated by you, so to speak. Buffalo, I almost feel like is a divisional opponent because they play the Chiefs at least once and really twice every year at this point. So it's similar to it. Everyone else comes into a game against the Chiefs, and the Bills, when the playoffs start, do as well. And they press, or they feel like we can't afford a mistake, or that OPI call early on would have sent them off the rails, like whatever. Philly had none of it. None of it. And that's where, and we'll get to Sirianni in a bit, he deserves credit. It's where I gave Jalen credit earlier. And from a schematic standpoint, man, this was Vic Fangio's, this is the word I was looking for earlier, masterpiece. Truly. And so that D-line, Jalen Carter is a great player. Everyone else on that D-line are just good players. They don't, you know what I mean? They might turn into great players, but they don't have dominant all-pros across that D-line, but they did last night. And I understand the Chiefs had their guard playing tackle, but that's what they've been doing for the last 5 games and playing their best football doing it. That was a masterpiece performance by them defensively. And offensively, the Chiefs kind of dared Jalen to pass because they put so much up against Saquon, and he answered the bell time and again. I am a 100. You know the only people who aren't shocked, it's so weird. are Philly fans.
Yeah.
It's not just Cab.
Yeah.
All Super Bowl week, no one in the media was calling blowout. The fans were like, we're going to blow you out.
That's what my buddy said, too.
And again,
he wasn't trying to be like Philly bravado. It was like, no, our line is too good.
And so whatever, maybe it was dumb luck that they called it, or maybe they saw something no one in the media did. But the Philly fans that I was seeing all week, that I had the same line to all week, and God, they have sent it back to me a lot, which was, I hope you really enjoy tonight, because tomorrow is going to be the worst night of your life, which was Saturday. Turned out being the opposite as it was. They were like, no, I think we can beat you guys by a lot. And my answer was, but the Chiefs never get beaten by a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're never not in the game, but they weren't in this game.
And like, what was so impressive, Philly, they went there with a plan, and I'm sure the Chiefs had a plan. Clearly, they've always had a plan. And it's like, I liken it to a boxing match, because everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Yeah. Brew. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
And the Chiefs' offense was off.
And they came out,
and when you saw
and they
the
just
photos on the bench, they looked deflated.
To me, the deflation happened once they were down 4 scores. Like all those shots of the bench didn't look like that at any point in the first half. In the second half, it felt like they knew we've lost.
Greg, were you surprised? I was most surprised by the fact that it didn't seem like they had a new game plan.
Like the Chiefs?
The Chiefs. I was like, where? And I know it was kind of a subtle shot at you.
Yeah.
Where I was
plays.
like, where are all these secret plays?
They didn't have time to get anything off.
So,
but it's not like there's
something subtle at all, by the way.
It wasn't like, wow, they're getting to Patrick. Let's dig into
try to run the ball.
Decades of either run the ball or have something. They did one of those that little twisty handoff. I was like, oh, that's a little something. But were you surprised there was no counter to the pressure?
I was surprised, but the amount of pressure that they were getting and the fact that they weren't bringing any extra guys. Like, what are you going to?
Is the problem?
They literally were choking out the Chiefs.
I mean,
like the quick passes that they were going to, they were trying to do that. They tried to move the line, move the pocket. They tried to do all those things, and it just never worked because Philly was always a step. The Cooper DeJean pick, that's a play that Patrick Mahomes makes all the time, and it was like Cooper DeJean knew, okay, he's gonna try to throw it. He's gonna try to let me go.
Yep.
It was like they were a step ahead, and there was nothing that the Chiefs could do.
And I know on the broadcast they talked about, maybe it was a halftime, I'm not sure. They talked about bringing in extra guys to block. Man, if they're rushing 4, and now all of a sudden, okay, so you have 5 linemen and quarterback. So now it's still already, if you're just blocking like that, going to be 5 on 7. If you bring in 2 extra guys to block. Now you've got 3 guys running routes on 7 guys. It doesn't matter how much time you have. So their ability to get to Patrick with 4 guys is what won them the game. Yeah. Patrick's inability to, on the plays he actually had time, play like he normally does is what led to the blowout. Does that make sense?
He was rattled.
Right. He was missing throws badly.
Yeah.
Sirianni, now a Super Bowl champion coach, joining a small group of active coaches to go to 2 Super Bowls and win 1, bracing adversity. Apologies in order to Nick Sirianni.
Who are you asking?
I'm asking you.
Oh, okay. So here's what I've realized. Nick Sirianni, Dan Campbell, biting kneecaps, Joe Mazzulla, I wish the floor tasted like blood.
Yeah, I like that.
We just might be in the golden age of weird coaches. And I doubted all of them. Like Dan Campbell's opening press conference, I'm like, I don't think that's going to work. Worked. Joe Mazzulla, biggest Celtics fan in the world, your buddy Bill Simmons, openly mocked that guy for the first 6 months. Called him second-row Joe, said he wasn't ready for the job, whatever it is. And now he's one of the best coaches in the NBA. This guy's opening press conference was, if you guys remember it, about as bad as any ever was. And then I think because that seemed so tepid and awkward, he then overcompensated by just becoming the South Philly jerk to the media, like, you know what I mean, publicly. Whatever it is, man, like, this is where I will concede. I normally don't buy into the you had to play to understand. I don't buy into that with most things. There's one part of it where it might be true. Maybe lack of playing makes me have a bit of a blind spot on what type of coaching players would relate to. Like, maybe a lot of the stuff that I find absurd, they love. You know what I mean? Maybe a lot of the stuff that I find like he is courting criticism, he's doing it so it's focused on him and on the others. I don't know. What I do know is in their two biggest games of the year, they played their two best games. He's prepared them for 2 Super Bowls. Offensively, they were great in both Super Bowls. So, yeah, I mean, he deserves credit.
He can coach. We have to admit, there's no reason to think he can't coach.
That's right.
I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. They were a 4-win team, and I get it. They had made the playoffs before and won that Super Bowl. But they won 4 games the year before he got there. Jalen Hurts was a backup that no one thought could throw. All right, except Mama Hurts, you know? Yes. And he helps develop Jalen Hurts into now a top 5, whatever, quarterback, top 6, whatever, and goes to the playoffs every time, Super Bowl every year, Super Bowl twice, and now has won one against what we consider the best coach in the league. I mean, there's no reason to think he can't win. And in his 4 years, he's had 3 different offensive coordinators and 3 different defensive coordinators. So he got to get the credit. We have to give the credit to Nick Sirianni. And just like Jalen Hurts, who's a different type of quarterback than we're used to seeing, we have to look at him, and you mentioned some of the guys, Dan Campbell. Like, success comes in different packages. And everybody's not going to be, you know, one type of coach. Some guys are going to do it differently. And we have to accept that this guy, it's all about wins and losses. Yeah. Because Greg, you know it better than all of us. I would think every head coach knows X's and O's. So it's about, can you relate to the players? Can you get them to run through a wall for you? Whatever you have to do to get those W's, and this dude gets W's.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we go back to the beginning of this season and we look at what transpired with him not being able to select his coordinators and him potentially being on, I thought it was a sign of he's on the hot seat. He has to win.
And he was, I think.
But there also had to be something that Howie Roseman and others saw, like, okay, there's something to him kind of being like Jalen Hurts, if you will. If we put the right pieces around him and allow him to focus on what he does really well, we got something really special here. Like, his ability to manage the personalities on that team, like A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, the feud or whatever the relationship might have been was.
Can I ask you about a specific play?
Absolutely.
Jalen comes, not Jalen. A.J. Brown comes off the field and kind of yells, or they have some sort of, from, if you didn't know, low-level confrontation.
Yep.
I believe the next play, A.J. scores a touchdown.
It was after the Mahomes pick.
And they're laughing.
They joke about the
book. What was your read on that interaction and then the corresponding touchdown?
My read on that is like, you got to kind of meet crazy with crazy. Like, for A.J. Brown to respond like that, you're up.
17-0 in the
Don't implode and allow your opponent to gain some type of momentum. Your head coach, he didn't allow A.J. Brown to just yell at him. He let him know, like, look, believe and trust the process, whatever he said.
Yeah.
And then the next play, he knows, okay, let me get him to reset, lock back in. Let me get him a quick, easy pass. Let's get him something, because he understands every receiver, if we get in the end zone, the rest of the game, we're good. I didn't get in the end zone. Everything on top of that is ice cream and cake and frosting and all the things.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.